Being broke. It sucks. It's sadly all I know in my decade and a half in being an adult. I know the supermajority of you know the feeling. But I'm not here to talk about all the social and political reasons why the supermajority of the population is broke. I am here to ask you this question. Have you even been so broke that you stop making any sense at all? For example, when those times that you're not broke.
Financial stability provides a sense of security and opens up opportunities for personal growth.
Versus those times when you're broke.
Growth personal for opportunities up opens and security of sense of provides stability financial.
Well, in today's episode, the phrase, "I'm so broke I can't even afford to make sense," is the topic. For stories about people being broke and how they cope with it. And just to give you a heads up, these stories are sad. Especially stories number 2 and 4. I don't normally give my personal opinion about the stories that move me the most, but it's story 2. After you listen to it, you'll understand why. Since I don't have a smooth transition, if these stories move you, and you want to support me and this channel, you can go to my apparel website, justtextclothing.com, to purchase the "I'm so broke I can't even afford to make sense" tee. Scan the QR code on your screen, or click the link in the description to purchase. And now, with the setup concluded, let's get to story number 1.
Story 1. The Nonsensical Life. It was Tuesday again, and George awoke from a night of fitful half-dreams, his mind foggy from another day of scrounging and failure. He rubbed his unshaven face and put on the tattered purple coat and polka-dotted bow tie he wore while working. It was going to be another long day holding the arrow sign on the sidewalk wearing the plucky plumber mascot costume. George had held it together as an accountant at a law firm before the 2008 financial crisis. But when half the firm got laid off, including George, his savings quickly dried up covering rent and necessities in a tough job market. Soon he was begging for shifts dressed as fast food mascots, department store greeters, even a walking LED sign waving customers into cell phone stores. It didn't pay nearly enough, so over the last few months George had ended up living out of his beaten-up Toyota Corolla. He stared at his face in the rearview mirror, the lines and weathered skin making him look years older than his 42.
Well, at least it matches my new job,
he said with a sigh. He got out and put on the plucky plumber outfit. An oversized blue work shirt and red cap along with bulbous fake hands and feet. It reminded him of playing dress-up as a kid.
If only life was still so simple, he muttered.
Over the next 8 hours, George danced, hooped and waved his giant glove hands at passing cars in the hot sun, directing people to Sullivan's plumbing supply. He started to get dizzy, his clothing drenched in sweat. The cars blurred together into streams of metal, the people staring at him from them merely blobs with faces. He decided to make a game of picking out details.
There's a lady with a red hat. That guy has a tattoo on his arm.
It kept him from losing his mind to boredom. When cars were stopped at the light, he made silly pantomime gestures at the drivers, pretending to cry giant tears that kids laughed at, thumbing his puffy nose, twisting his body into weird shapes. One teenager rolled down the window to flick a quarter at him while his friends guffawed.
Money for you, funny man,
he called out. George bowed deeply to pick up the coin with his unwieldy costume gloves, placing it gently into his coin pouch. At least his nonsense brought some moments of joy, he thought, if mostly scornful laughter. The job was humiliating, but it kept gas in his car. Though at this point, he could barely string together a sensible thought, let alone make sense of his wretched life. He waved wildly at an oncoming minivan, ready to make another family smile through the madness. Bring on more Tuesdays. Story 2. The Change Collector. Anna woke up just before sunrise, as she always did. She slowly stretched her aging body before moving to the edge of the tattered sofa she called her bed. Her bones ached from years sleeping on park benches before finding this moldy piece of furniture in a forgotten alley. At least she now had some protection from the rain thanks to the scavenged tent of tarps stretched above the sofa. As Anna exited the temporary shelter, she blinked at the emerging gray dawn light and smiled a near-toothless grin. A new day meant fresh possibilities to find loose change that fell like manna from heaven onto the busy city streets. Anna had been living this routine for the past 18 years, roaming block after block seeking glints of coins that she collected and deposited into her oversized rollaboard suitcase. She slowly pushed her laden luggage cart along the sidewalk, scanning intently. Soon after leaving a bus stop bench, she spotted a dull nickel and bent to pick it up with sore fingers, examining it closely before dropping it into the zippered suitcase pouch designated for nickels. By mid-morning, her collection of cast-off pennies nearly overflowed its own wrinkled compartment. Most people viewed the hunched, raggedly dressed woman who endlessly wandered with a look of suspicion or pity. But Anna took no notice as she made her rounds, mumbling under her breath as she added each new-found coin to its proper place, jingling the suitcase as she went. She kept a frayed cloth bag looped around her neck to hold more recent acquisitions before they could be sorted. Some days Anna would get a windfall donation, like the day a young woman stopped and emptied her coin purse into Anna's expectant hands, nearly $5 worth. Anna blessed the lady profusely. On lucky days Anna collected over $10, which she would carefully take to the bank to trade for a $10 bill, kept in a locked compartment separate from the categorized change. The coins weren't money to spend for Anna, but a purpose and passion. She loved examining each piece, rubbing away ground to discover dates and tiny details that connected her to unknown histories. A 1936 Buffalo nickel, a wheat stockback penny from 1943, she wondered about who dropped them, imagining bankers, conductors, clerks from earlier times touching these very coins as they jangled in pockets decades ago. Her collection also held painful memories that still haunted Anna of losing her two young sons to pneumonia one harsh winter when she couldn't afford the doctor, the bills piling up until she lost everything. But the sight and touch of each new coin comforted her with a tangible connection to all those souls past and present who nurtured a hope, however desperate, that better days lie ahead. Even discarded change promises possibilities. Some call Anna crazy, pushing her cart of clinking treasure up and down sidewalks, without a cent to buy bread or pay rent. But in all the bits of copper and silver she rescues from gutters and dirt, she has found a purpose that no one can take from her. The change gives more richness to Anna's life than money could ever buy. Story 3. Delusional Duncan. Duncan awoke eager for another big day of business meetings and client calls. He put on his favorite power suit and navy Brooks Brothers number along with a bold red tie and matching pocket square. At one point it was his go-to look for wowing corporate boards and investors when Duncan was a hotshot businessman with a software company valued in the millions. But that seemed a lifetime ago, before the lawsuits and market crash that bankrupted Duncan's company along with his life savings 8 years back. He barely avoided jail time, and having to pay settlements cleaned out any remaining assets besides his half-wrecked Chevy sedan. Duncan had to take his suit to the cleaners when he started living in the car between nights, crashing at the YMCA shelter. Yet still every morning, Duncan confidently donned his worn attire like a uniform, his last vestige of success, ready to launch yet another entrepreneurial venture with endless energy and bravado covering up his frayed cuffs and desperation. Today he entered the local diner and shared his newest vision with the sympathetic owner, Betty, over a plate of eggs and stale toast that Duncan couldn't really afford, but Betty always let slide.
So the concept for Sunrise Software is an app that predicts stock futures combined with individual astrology sign data, making projections more personally accurate and meaningful for each user.
Duncan explained between bites. Duncan whipped out his inkjet-printed prospectus from his scuffed leather portfolio showing revenue projections of $20 million in year 2. Betty nodded politely, wondering when Duncan might have a chance to grab a shower since he seemed to be wearing the same suit for a week now. Duncan visited the library next to craft his pitch deck slides. The front desk clerk Amy recognized him but waived the guest login fee that should have applied to non-residents. Duncan flashed a charming grin, boasting he was just there putting together some delightful designs for his latest amazing concept. Amy sighed inwardly but smiled back gently at the clearly troubled man. For the next several days, Duncan made the rounds to every tech firm, investor mixer and banking loan office in town, adamantly touting his ideas to any poor receptionist or handler unable to refuse his zealous elevator pitch before their impatient bosses. Each evening he'd return to the crowded shelter bunks still jazzed with excitement over the brilliant sunrise launch. That Friday an idea struck Duncan for an even better approach: an online hub connecting amateur musicians and video game developers to craft custom soundtracks. He worked furiously over the weekend on his new presentation, forgetting to eat and shave. By Monday's planning meeting with a local angel investor group, Duncan was disheveled, reeking of body odor, with wild eyebrows and 2 days of stubble. The head angel tried to gently hint to Duncan that he might be a little overambitious and underprepared. Duncan refused to hear it, passionately arguing that this concept would revolutionize collaborative creativity and traditional entertainment models. As he was escorted out by security, he shouted back promises about the coming success and acclaim in store for his brilliant cross-platform musical venture. Back at the shelter that night, he whispered plans to awake at dawn for gym, laundry and job sites before Monday meetings with 4 venture firms who would surely adore his inspired social music portal. Curled in a top bunk, still wearing his suit, Duncan smiled as he pictured the glamorous press photos soon to come, with him directing global operations of his booming crowdsourced soundtrack company. The fantasy lulled him into a contented sleep, his dreams rich while bank accounts stayed broke. Story 4. The Senseless series. When the social worker first brought Liz and her little brother Tony to the Cinderblock Row house, Liz glared angrily out the taxi window, refusing to look at their new foster home. She couldn't believe Mama and Daddy were really gone, taken by the same flu in one merciless week. Liz was only 15 but overnight became like a mother to 9-year-old Tony. She had to be strong. The squat foster mom Millie greeted them on the cramped front porch. Tony shyly hugged Millie's wide waist, but Liz sulked past, tossing her trash bag of clothes onto the threadbare sofa. She would not make this easy on anyone.
It's just till we find a proper place for you both,
Millie said. Liz rolled her eyes. The first few days Liz sniped at Millie and Tony, blaming him for spilling milk that first morning. The little boy's eyes grew wide at his sister's strange anger over an accident.
Lizzie, I'm sorry,
Tony said, but she cut him off.
You ruin everything,
she snapped bitterly. That night they lay squeezed together on a sagging cot in the tiny room they shared. Their devastated minds swirling, Tony confided in a small voice that he missed Daddy's bear hugs.
Daddy was too fat anyway, and his beard was scratchy.
Liz replied flatly, making Tony gasp then giggle at her, flipping a sweet memory into an odd joke. Soon they were both laughing wildly into their shared pillow over Liz's silly nonsense, releasing some shared hurt. In the alien home, the siblings gradually fell into ridiculous imaginary games. As they folded laundry, Tony guessed Millie's bra size or purpose, inventing odd backstories for the tired lady who cared for them. Liz would then mimic Millie in comical ways, bossing fake children and pets. Sometimes Tony spoke gibberish, claiming it was Russian he learned from their neighbor.
I can teach if Liz gets me ice cream,
he said slyly with an innocent grin. Finding supper constantly burned or odd ingredients combined, they jokingly called Millie's kitchen adventures
Fear Factor cooking.
Giggling uncontrollably one night when served a gelatinous casserole, their laughter confused Millie but felt so good, even if a bit senseless. In their escalating silly gossip and tall tales, they stopped expecting the world or foster home to make any kind of sense either. School was Liz's biggest challenge. Hard to focus, she reacted angrily to friends pitying her situation. But Tony started proudly calling Liz
my genius sister,
for every small academic accomplishment she shared. Soon she accepted the moniker, boasting fake class awards or incomprehensible theories to Tony, who cheered every outlandish story. Together they ignored pure teasing about their second-hand clothes and unstable life. 4 months later, a great aunt surfaced to take them in, giving the siblings their first real home since losing their folks. They cried, leaving Millie, who dried their eyes, grateful the two still had each other to lean on, no matter what life held. Their shared voyage remained complicated, but humor and nonsense continued to save them on rough days. A lifetime of inside jokes and ridiculous memories sustained their bond, keeping close their loving parents' spirits.
Okay, those were 4 emotional stories. Which one affected you the most? Let me know in the comment section below. Like, subscribe, and click the bell notification to stay up to date when I upload to this channel, and when I release Volume 2 of the I'm So Broke I Can't Even Afford to Make Sense series. Also make sure to check out the I'm So Broke I Can't Even Afford to Make Sense tee by scanning the QR code or clicking the link in the description. Okay, that's it for me now. See you in the future.